It's late November, and McEwen Resident Services has a difficult decision to make. Within the next 2 weeks, a residential advisor needs to be hired to fill a vacancy for the following term. There are 3 equally strong candidates, one of them being Michaela Benson, who is a wheelchair user. In order for her to be hired, structural and functional accommodations would be required. There are also concerns about what kind of impact her hiring might have. Her physical capability to act in emergency situations has been called into question, and the company wonders whether this responsibility is a bona fide occupational requirement, or BOFOR. Accommodations totaling $3,000 along with the use of a partner would be required, which the company is concerned could cause undue hardship. The company wants to ensure that Michaela Benson is given a fair opportunity at the job, and the company wants to avoid invoking any human rights complaints. The company is committed to an inclusive workplace and has worked diligently to make accommodations for disabled individuals in the past. There are many factors in determining the correct decision for the company, especially what qualifies as a BFOR or undue hardship. Within the next 2 weeks, a residential advisor needs to be hired and oriented. A decision needs to be made immediately, and time is running out.
In total, our team identified 6 risks linked with choosing to hire or not hire Benson, respectively. The first risk of hiring Benson is that it may be hard for her to react in emergencies effectively due to her disability. Considering that Benson needs to use a wheelchair in case of an emergency, her disability may prevent her from fulfilling her duties, putting her safety at risk. In that case, her disability may need to be considered as BFOR. Also, the occurrence of this situation may also lead her to believe that her employers did not make the necessary accommodations. The risk level will be medium since the risk can be mitigated by hiring a partner RA and investing in accommodations. We don't think this risk has changed much in the past because BFOR has changed only slightly. Another risk of hiring Benson is caused by the future investment in accommodation. The total extra cost for hiring Benson is the $3,000 structural fee and any additional cost when assigning a partner RA for Benson. Fortunately, a solution exists, given that the Canadian government would provide financial support for employers who are willing to hire disabled workers. Over the last 2 decades, financial support from the government remains relatively unchanged. Therefore, the risk remains relatively stable. In addition, the residence has approximately $3 million in revenue, which could cover the fee paid for the accommodation, so this is a low-level risk. Lastly, hiring Benson may cause low moral and the occurrence for co-workers' inappropriate attitude towards Benson. Benson's disability may increase her co-workers' workloads, causing dissatisfaction from her colleagues. An uncomfortable environment towards Benson could be formed by co-workers' passive attitudes, like pity. This will make it difficult for Benson to integrate into the workplace, and overall, the workplace moral could fail too. However, this risk is low with rapid technology development and utilizing proper accommodations. Her disability will not impact her co-workers. Previously, understanding of the disabled was low in society, but now the acceptance rate has increased dramatically.
Moving to the risks that McEwen residents may face if they do not hire Benson. First, there is a high risk that Benson may perceive her unsuccessful application as discrimination. Her overall qualifications are the same as the other candidates, with the difference being her disability. According to the Alberta Human Rights Requirements, or AHRC, the not hiring decision can be perceived as a discrimination measure. Consequently, Benson may file a complaint against the company. The risk extent hasn't changed much over the last decades. Many discrimination cases in the hiring process end up with a hard decision in identifying the position's BFOR, and past cases also play a key role in determining future judgments. The second risk is that McEwen may miss out on being ahead of employment equity standards. The complaint that might be raised by Benson could have a detrimental side effects on the organization's reputation. For instance, in 2020, Facebook's reputation was affected by multiple complaints about systemic racial discrimination raised by Black employees. The image and reputation of an organization can be regarded as its intangible assets, which are indispensable for the organization to defend. So the risk rate is very high in this case, and the risk's extent has significantly increased over the past 20 years. The last risk of not hiring Benson is that it may lose an opportunity to build a more diverse community. Benson's disability allows her to have the advantages over the other candidates, while handling the disabled residents or even the residents in minority groups. If Benson becomes part of the RA teams, she could attract more prospective residents who are in the minority groups or suffering from disabilities. This would enable McQueen's residents to construct a more diverse community and provide a more exceptional student experience. Hence, the risk of not hiring Benson is high, given all those advantages that the company gives up if they do not hire her. Furthermore, there is an increase in the extent of the risk because people have paid more attention to diversity-related topics in the society over the previous 20 years.
As one of the decision factors to consider is whether or not being able to physically respond to threatening situations should be a limitation to hiring Benson, we resort to what the AHRC outlines as a B4. The B4 states that in situations, a limitation on individual rights may be reasonable and justifiable. Discrimination or exclusion may be allowed if an employee can show that a discriminatory requirement of a job is essential for performing that job. Seeing as McEwen has no prior situation in which the need arose for a current RA to physically respond to an intruder or dangerous situation, there is no precedence to back up this belief. The accommodations that would be required for Benson to be able to work as an RA are not within the premises of undue hardship. According to the AHRC, undue hardship occurs if accommodation would create onerous conditions for an employer, such as intolerable financial costs or serious disruption to business. While there are structural fees, McEwen can make use of financial relief through means such as tax exemptions and government funds, such as the Government of Canada's Enabling Accessibility Fund. With access to this, undue hardship would be negated. Other factors to be considered are potential disruptions to operations or employee morale issues and the size of the company. While Benson would require the assistance of a partner RA, this assistance would be minimal, as the main requirements of her role can be completed regardless of her disability. Since McEwen Resident Services is considered a small business with a workforce of only 50 employees, the accommodations are relatively minor and within the realm of their capabilities. Last, interference with others' rights, health and safety regulations, and workplace flexibility need to be considered. In terms of other rights, the accommodations in no way discriminate or cause harm. Rather, they make the company a more accessible place to work. Health and safety regulations are also respected, as accommodations are not sacrificing the safety of anyone in the workplace. Workplace flexibility is not a concern, as temporary work arrangements or employee relocations are not necessary. These accommodations are overall minimal and well within the capabilities that the company has demonstrated in the past.
When examining the case of McEwen Resident Services, there are many factors in determining the best course of action. Michaela Benson is fully qualified for the job, even though risks have been identified. However, when analyzing all factors, a clear decision is apparent. McEwen Resident Services should hire Michaela Benson. The risks of not hiring her outweigh the risks of hiring her, as most of these concerns can be negated if the proper steps are taken. Firstly, the requirements listed in the job description are not candidates for BFOR. Therefore, the risk that Benson would be unable to act accordingly in an emergency situation is minimized. Secondly, the necessary accommodations do not present undue hardship for the organization. The point of hiring goes beyond simply following human rights requirements. By hiring Michaela Benson, the company makes clear strides towards achieving its goals of promoting a diverse workplace. Doing so also helps eliminate obstacles that prevent disabled individuals from achieving employment. By hiring her, the company shows they are committed to diversity and they create a more inclusive workplace for future candidates. It is up to companies to go beyond simply doing the minimum the law requires. With this hiring, McEwen Resident Services furthers employment equity, creating a more fair workplace for all.